My son didn't scream. He didn't cry. He didn't even come to me that day. But something inside him changed. He was only 14 and from that day on, he stopped calling her mum. He'd say her. He stopped hugging her. He stopped smiling when she walked into the room. I thought it was just teenage stuff. Puberty, mood swings, maybe school stress. But I was wrong. He saw something I didn't. And instead of telling me, he showed me, slowly. One photo, one receipt, one late-night call he recorded by accident, or so I thought. And when I finally understood what he was trying to say, when I realized what my wife had done to us, I didn't lose my mind. I planned. I remember the day like it happened 5 minutes ago. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was working on my car in the garage, something to clear my head after another long week at the firm. My son Aidan had just come back from his friend's place 2 hours early. He walked past me without a word. No "Hey Dad," no small talk, no request to hang out like he usually did. Just silence.
That wasn't like him.
I poked my head inside the house to check on him. He was sitting on the couch, remote in hand, staring at a blank TV screen. The TV wasn't even on. He was just there. "You good, buddy?" I asked. He nodded, but it was the kind of nod that meant no. Then I heard the front door unlock. My wife Julia walked in, shopping bags in hand, sunglasses still on. "Hey baby," she chirped. But Aidan didn't answer, not even a glance. That was the first time he ignored her, but I didn't think too much of it back then. Kids get moody, they go through phases. Hormones, school stress, maybe he had a fight with a friend. But then came dinner. She made her favorite pasta, not his, hers. Aidan sat there poking at his plate. Julia tried to start a conversation with him, but he gave her nothing. Not rudeness, not attitude, just an eerie cold silence. He cleared his plate, stood up and said, "Thanks for the food." But not "Thanks, Mom," just the food. Something in me twitched. That night, after Julia went to sleep, I knocked on Aidan's door. He was at his desk, drawing. He didn't even look up. "Wanna talk?" I asked. He shook his head. I stood there for a second, debating whether to push. But I didn't. I just walked away. Maybe that was my first mistake. The next few days, the distance between them grew. Julia started noticing it too. "What's up with Aidan?" she asked one night, curling up beside me. I shrugged. "Teenage stuff?" She sighed. "You think I did something?" I looked at her. Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt? Panic? Maybe I imagined it. "Did you?" I asked. She laughed. "Of course not." But it didn't feel real. Over the next week, Aidan avoided her like the plague. And Julia, always the charming, warm, affectionate mum, turned distant, defensive, tense. Then one night, Aidan slipped a folded piece of paper under my office door. I opened it. A photo. Grainy, low res, probably taken with an old phone. But it was clear enough. Julia. And a man I didn't recognize. They were at a coffee shop. Her hand was on his. I stared at it for 10 minutes straight. Aidan didn't say a word that night. Or the next. He didn't need to. Because now, something had shifted in me too. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I just sat in my office, staring at that photo for hours. My mind was a tornado, spinning questions, suspicions and fears I wasn't ready to face. Who was he? When did it start? Why? What else had I missed? And the worst one, how long had my son known? The next morning at breakfast, I watched them both. Julia made her usual smoothie. She moved around the kitchen like everything was fine, laughing at her phone, humming to herself. It was like watching a stranger perform a character she'd memorized. Aidan came downstairs, looked at her, and then sat silently at the table. She placed a plate of eggs and toast in front of him. "Your favorite," she smiled. He pushed the plate away. "I'm not hungry." Her face twitched. "Aidan." I said, "I'm not hungry." Then he got up and left the room. She turned to me, clearly upset. "I don't know what's gotten into him." I just sipped my coffee and said, "Maybe he saw something you didn't want him to see." Her eyes flickered for a second. "Panic? Shame?" She covered it fast. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked. I stood up and walked away. I didn't owe her an answer, not yet. Later that day, Aidan slipped another item under my door, a receipt, one I hadn't seen before, from a hotel in the next town over, a 2-person room. Her name was on it. Dated 3 weeks ago. I looked at the timestamp. Friday, the day she said she was visiting her sister. I called her sister that night. They hadn't spoken in a month. I didn't tell Julia what I knew. Not yet. Instead, I did something that even surprised me. I started playing dumb. Over the next week, I watched her. When she said she was heading to the grocery store, I checked the mileage on her car before and after. When she left her phone on the counter, I looked at her call logs. Nothing recent, but that only meant one thing: she was hiding it somewhere else. She wasn't sloppy. She was careful, which meant this wasn't her first time. And I think Aidan knew that. But he didn't say a word. That's what haunted me most. He didn't cry, he didn't accuse, he didn't beg me to fix it. He just started treating her like a stranger in our house. One night I found him sitting on the back porch. Hoodie up, head down. I sat next to him. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, eyes never leaving the ground. I took a deep breath. "Why didn't you just tell me, Aidan?" He paused. Then softly, barely a whisper, he said, "Because I wasn't sure you'd believe me." That broke something in me. Not just because he doubted me, but because he had every right to. I had let myself become so blind, so trusting, so passive, that my own son thought I'd defend his mother before I defended him. I put my arm around him. He didn't pull away. "I believe you now," I said. He nodded again, and then he whispered, "There's more." That night, I didn't sleep, because deep down, I knew this wasn't just an affair. It was a war, and I had just started waking up to it. "There's more," Aidan had said. The words echoed in my head like a loaded gun cocked behind a door. The next morning, he handed me a USB stick. I didn't ask how he got it. I didn't need to. He simply said, "Just watch it when you're alone." And I did. Later that night, when Julia was asleep, her breath steady, her face soft like the woman I used to know, I plugged the USB into my laptop. There were 3 files, each named with a date. The first was a video, taken through a crack in a hotel window curtain, blurry, shaky, but unmistakable. Julia, and that same man from the coffee shop. They weren't just having coffee this time. They were in bed. I pressed pause. My stomach turned. But not from rage. Not yet. It was a different sickness, one that only comes when the illusion finally shatters. The second file was a voice recording. A phone call. Her voice. Soft, flirty, manipulative. He's too predictable. I don't even think he'd notice if I disappeared for a weekend. The man laughed on the other end. I almost feel bad for the guy. "You shouldn't," she said. "He's just comfortable, convenient. He'd never leave me, even if I gave him a reason." I sat frozen. Not because of what she said, but because she was right. I had been comfortable, predictable, easy, and I think she resented that. The third file was a photo of my house, taken from a car window. The angle showed our driveway, my car, the kitchen lights. Taken at night, that man had been outside our home, watching, waiting, and I had no idea. I closed the laptop slowly. I didn't say anything to Aidan the next day, but I didn't need to. When he looked at me, he saw it. The switch had flipped. So, Julia, of course, had no idea. She went about her days the same, smile on her face, sweet texts, cooking dinner like a loving wife. But there was a tremor in her energy, as if some part of her sensed that the balance had shifted. And it had. I started leaving the house without telling her where I was going. I started locking my office door. I started taking late-night walks, not to clear my mind, but to sharpen it. This wasn't about exploding or confronting her in some dramatic scene. No, that's what she expected. What she feared was silence, strategy, a plan, because that's who I used to be before the numb years, before marriage and mortgages and routine turned me into a man on autopilot. But now, I was awake, and I was listening. A week later, she brought it up, over breakfast. "So, are you okay?" she asked, sipping her tea. I looked up. Why wouldn't I be? She hesitated. "You've been distant." I smiled. "Just busy." She nodded, looked down, bit her lip. Then she tried to change the subject. But I saw it, the panic behind her eyes. She thought maybe, just maybe, I knew, and that terrified her more than anything, because it meant she'd lost control. And for the first time in a long time, I had it. I stopped being her husband that week. Not officially, not in any way she could point at or accuse me of. But something in me disconnected. We still shared a house, a dinner table, even a bed. But the man she once manipulated, he wasn't there anymore. And she could feel it. She'd try her usual games, light touches on the arm, soft apologies for things that didn't need apologies. the kind of affection that only shows up when something needs covering. I let her believe it was working, but inside, I was already 3 steps ahead. I started going through our finances, quietly. It turns out, Julia was not only careless with loyalty, she was also sloppy with money. Shared accounts, transfers, little charges to places I never shopped, meals I never ate, Uber rides I never took. She thought I never checked. And for years, she was right. But now, I was auditing everything. She'd been sending small amounts disguised as errands to a secondary bank account, one I never knew existed, not in her name, but in his. She was financing their future, bit by bit, like rats slowly hollowing out the walls of our home. I smiled to myself, because if she had a plan to leave, I now had a plan to make sure she'd regret ever thinking it would work. That night, I met with a lawyer, not one of those billboard divorce attorneys. No, I called an old friend, a quiet one, the kind who handled private matters for wealthy men who didn't want noise, only results. I gave him everything. The videos, the audio, the money trail, the hotel receipt. He didn't even blink. "Do you want to make this public?" he asked. "No," I said. "I want to make it permanent." He nodded. "Then we do this smart." I started separating our finances. One login at a time, locking access, moving assets into protected accounts, making copies of everything she never thought I'd find. She'd notice eventually. But not yet. Because I was careful. I played the role, smiled at dinner, kissed her forehead goodnight, let her think I was still asleep in the dream. But every day, I woke up earlier. Every night, I stayed up later. Because now it wasn't just about me. It was about my son, my legacy, my dignity. She thought she could hollow out our life and still wear the costume of a devoted wife. But the mask was slipping, and I was done pretending not to see it. The final piece came from Aidan. It was a text message forwarded from her phone. He'd cloned it. I didn't ask how. The message was from him. "You sure he doesn't know? Because I'm tired of hiding." "Trust me," she replied. "He's clueless. Just a little more time." Then what? Then we take what we can, and we disappear. Take what we can, disappear. She had written her ending. But what she didn't know was that I had already rewritten it. And soon, she'd be starring in a story she didn't see coming. Julia always liked to think she was the smartest person in the room. And for a long time, maybe she was. She knew how to read people, knew when to speak, when to be silent, knew exactly how to place her words like little knives dressed up in silk. But what she didn't know, what she could never have prepared for, was what it would look like when I stopped being her audience. I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was writing the script, scene by scene, silently, strategically, and she was still playing her role in the fantasy she thought she was directing. That week, I started moving forward with the lawyer's plan. First, the house. Legally, it was in both our names, but financially, I had put in 90% of the equity, something I hadn't even thought about until recently. The lawyer helped me freeze any refinance or equity withdrawal attempts, quietly, no alerts, no calls to her, just quiet locks behind the scenes. She wouldn't be able to run with half the house when the time came. Second, the accounts. Every shared account was now mirrored. I created duplicates in my name only, same banking institution, same format. But this time, with security only I controlled. Every dollar she funneled to her lover, matched by double going elsewhere, to accounts she didn't know existed. And the joint ones. I started adding just enough transactions to trigger fraud alerts carefully chosen, just enough to make the bank require re-verification. Of course, I'd be the only one answering those calls. She thought she was slowly carving out her escape fund, but in reality, she was walking straight into a financial cage I'd already locked from the outside. And still, at home she smiled like nothing was wrong. "Do you want to do a weekend away?" she asked one night over dinner. "Just the two of us?" I looked at her. So smooth, so sweet. A vacation, a distraction, or a final trip before her vanishing act. I gave her a warm smile. "That sounds nice. Let's look into it." She touched my hand and squeezed it gently. "I feel like we've been distant lately." "Do you?" "Yeah, I want to fix that." I nodded slowly. "I do too." And I meant it. Just not the way she thought. Aidan was watching her phone now. We weren't spying for the sake of curiosity. No, this was documentation. Every message, every location ping, every sneaky little meeting she thought she'd covered up. She even had a second phone. A burner, She kept it in her gym bag, tucked inside a pocket in her old yoga pants. Aidan found it when he was supposed to be grabbing her car keys. He took a picture of the screen, then put it back exactly as he found it. That phone held everything. Love notes, plans, photos, discussions about moving to a quiet coastal town once the money was sorted out. They were already looking at listings, houses with ocean views, far from the city noise. Julia wanted a fresh start. She would get it, just not the one she imagined. The last thing I did that week, I met with the HR director at my firm. I asked her to walk me through the legal protections regarding family-related asset transfers. Not for my own sake, but for hers, because the last 15 years of my career had secured me more than just money. They had given me reach, and I had begun making calls. People owed me favors. People who knew how to freeze things, erase things, make things surface at the exact wrong moment for someone like Julia. She didn't notice anything yet, but that was the point. The walls were closing in, and she was still decorating the room. It started with a missed text, just one. She left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was upstairs showering. I was making coffee, half distracted when it buzzed. Still good for Thursday night. Same hotel. I didn't touch the phone.
Didn't unlock it. Didn't respond.
I just stared at the message for a second too long, and smiled. That was the beginning of the unraveling. Because Julia, for all her secrets, had started getting sloppy. That night, she was quieter than usual. She looked at me like she was trying to read something behind my eyes. "Is everything okay?" she asked as we sat on the couch, the TV humming in the background. I shrugged. "Yeah, just tired. Work stuff." "Yeah." She nodded. "You've been distant lately." There it was again. That fake concern. I looked at her. "You've said that before. I just want us to be okay." I tilted my head. "Do you?" A flicker in her eyes, that little moment where her mask cracked just for a second. "I do," she said softly. But her voice lacked weight, like she was trying on the words rather than living them. By Friday, the cracks had widened. She got a call from the bank, an unexpected one. Some of the account verifications I had triggered had finally reached her end. I watched her on the phone, pacing the hallway. "No, that's not possible. I've always had access. Yes, I can confirm my identity." She hung up with a forced smile and walked into the kitchen. "Some weird glitch with the joint account," she said casually, pouring herself a glass of wine. "Probably just a bank system update." I nodded. Didn't say a word. She took a sip, but I saw the way her eyes flickered to me over the rim of the glass. She was starting to wonder. Not suspect, not accuse, just wonder. And that was the beginning of fear, because a liar's greatest enemy isn't being caught.
It's not knowing whether they've been caught.
She cancelled her Thursday night plans. I know because Aidan was tracking her burner phone. She'd texted him, "Need to reschedule. Something's off lately. I think he knows." That text changed everything. It was the first time she admitted it, even to herself. She felt the shift. Not because I confronted her, but because her game had stopped working. She'd start talking more at dinner, start asking more questions, start faking concern a little too hard. "Have you thought about going back to therapy?" she asked me one night, all soft eyes and concern. "For what?" "I don't know, just, things feel heavy." I smiled. "They do." That was all I gave her. No fuel, no fire, no confirmation, just ambiguity, the thing she hated most. On Sunday morning, she tried to surprise me with breakfast. Pancakes, fruit, coffee, the whole thing. I came downstairs to find her smiling at the table. "Thought we could have a nice morning," she said, and I let her have it. Not the truth. No, not yet. I let her have the illusion. I sat, I ate. I told her it was great. She leaned across the table and touched my hand. "I love you," she said. The words sat there like lead in the air. I looked at her, and for a split second I almost believed she believed it. But I didn't say it back, just smiled, slowly. "Thanks," I said, and her hand slowly retracted. Later that night, she texted him again. "Something's changing. He's not reacting. It's like he's waiting." So what do? We move faster, take what we can, then we go. That was the moment I knew. She was going to make her move soon. But so was I. Only mine had already begun. And she was walking straight into it. It happened on a Wednesday. A quiet, forgettable Wednesday. which made it perfect. She left the house at 6:42 p.m., hair freshly done, perfume too strong for just dinner with the girls. Her heels tapped quickly on the hardwood floor as she grabbed her clutch and threw a goodbye over her shoulder. "Don't wait up."
I didn't plan to.
But Aiden did. He was ready. He had memorized her routine better than anyone, even her. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about truth, about seeing it, feeling it, recording it. We had agreed, no confrontation, no chaos, not yet. Just confirmation. He followed her from a distance. He didn't have to get close. He knew where she'd go. He'd tracked her burner phone to the same cheap hotel 3 times now. Tonight was the 4th. He parked across the street, just out of range, and let the camera roll. Meanwhile, I stayed home. Watched a movie with the sound off. Every few minutes, I glanced at the phone, at the live feed. There she was, laughing too loud outside the hotel, touching his arm, his hand on the small of her back. Then they disappeared inside, and all I felt was stillness. Not rage, not grief, not even betrayal, just the icy calm of confirmation. The kind that changes a man from the inside out. Aiden got home late. He didn't say much. Just handed me the camera and went upstairs. He didn't want to see the footage again. He didn't need to. I stayed up most of the night watching, not because I needed more evidence, but because I needed the weight of it. To burn the denial out of my system permanently. There was no mistaking what I saw. No, maybe it's a misunderstanding. No, she's just going through something. It was betrayal. Willful, repeated, planned, and now recorded. The next day, she came home with a smile. She hummed as she folded laundry. Asked me about my day. I played my part. Told her work was busy, that I might be traveling next month. She paused. Traveling where? Maybe Seattle, could be DC. She nodded too quickly. Just let me know early, so I can plan. I smiled. Of course. The shift in her tone was subtle, but I could see it. The worry in her eyes. The fear that her timeline was collapsing. She was trying to act normal, trying to stay 1 step ahead. She didn't know she was already 3 steps behind. That weekend, I asked her to join me for dinner. Somewhere we hadn't been in years. She looked surprised, suspicious, but said yes. At the table, I toasted to us. To new beginnings, I said. She clinked glasses. That sounds nice. And for the rest of the meal, she watched me like a hawk, waiting for a slip, a question, a reveal. But I gave her nothing. Just a charming smile, a few laughs. I even thanked her for being patient with me. She almost choked on her wine. That night, after she fell asleep, I printed the photos. Every frame from that hotel. Every angle. I laid them out on the garage table. Then I started scanning financial records again. Bank statements. Wire transfers. Her secret savings account. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning an exit. Trying to move funds quietly. Slowly. She thought I hadn't noticed. She thought she'd leave me in pieces. But I wasn't the one breaking anymore. She was. She just didn't know it yet. Sunday mornings used to be her favorite. She'd wake up late, stretch like a cat, and walk barefoot into the kitchen, pretending nothing in the world was wrong. Except now, everything was. She just didn't know it yet. She sipped her coffee, scrolling her phone, fake smiling at Instagram posts. Her other life, the one she thought was hidden, probably buzzing in the background with secret texts. I sat across from her, calm, steady, waiting for the moment. She looked up. You okay? You've been quiet this weekend. I've been thinking. About what? I smiled. About endings. She blinked. Endings? I nodded. And what makes a good one? She laughed nervously. What is this, a movie? I didn't answer. I slid an envelope across the table. She froze. What's this? Open it. She hesitated. Tell me what it is first. I want to see your face when you do. She peeled it open, slowly, like her body already knew what her brain refused to believe. Inside were photos. Crisp, clear, time-stamped. Her and him. The hotel. The laughs. The kisses. The betrayal. Her face drained of color. She looked up, eyes wide, mouth half open. I didn't say a word. I let the silence cut her deeper than any shout ever could. Finally, she spoke. You went through my things. I laughed. That's your first response? Not an apology, not an explanation. But a defense? She slammed the envelope shut. You had no right. No right. I leaned in. I had every right. As your husband, as the man you've been lying to for months. You don't understand. No, I finally do. She stood up, panicked. This doesn't mean what you think it means. Really? Because what I think it means is that while I was raising our son, building our life, you were busy erasing it behind my back. She went quiet. The air between us turned cold. And then she tried to pivot. You've been distant too, you know. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me. I stood, and for the first time, she looked small. You don't get to blame this on me. I'm not. You are, and I'm done playing along. I didn't scream.
Didn't throw anything.
Didn't even raise my voice. I just laid out everything. The finances I'd locked down, the account I'd frozen, the lawyer I'd retained, the evidence I'd collected. She sat down, slowly, like her knees were giving out. I didn't mean to hurt you. I nodded. And yet you did, repeatedly. Tears welled up. But I wasn't moved. I had cried enough for both of us. She reached for my hand. I pulled back. I'm not here to fix this. I'm here to end it, on my terms. But what about our son? I've already thought of that. He'll be fine, because I will never let your decisions touch his future. She stared at me, the realization dawning. She wasn't leaving me. I was leaving her. As she sat there in stunned silence, I dropped one final bomb. I know about the account. What account? The one in your boyfriend's name, the one you've been feeding from our money. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I've already moved the funds, legally, traced every transaction, filed everything. You're welcome to challenge it in court if you want every detail of your affair made public. Her face cracked. The reality hit hard. This wasn't just a breakup. It was exposure. It was consequences. I walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. You wrote the chapters of your escape, Julia, but you forgot something. She looked up, trembling. I read the whole book, and I rewrote the ending. Then I left, and for the first time in months, I felt free. The house was quiet. Not the cold, tense silence of suspicion and secrets, but the kind of stillness that feels earned, cleansed. I stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over a life I had finally taken back. She was gone. Not just from the house, but from the story. From the heart of our home, from the core of our daily routines, from the warmth that she had once pretended to belong to. It wasn't easy. The divorce finalized quickly, faster than either of us expected. The evidence was overwhelming. Her lawyer advised her not to fight. My lawyer made sure the custody terms were crystal clear. Full custody, and financial restitution for the funds she tried to hide. I wasn't interested in vengeance anymore. Just justice. My son didn't say much during those first few days after she left. He kept his head down, quiet. But there was something different in his eyes. Not sadness, relief. We went back to our normal routines, school runs, late-night burgers, lazy Saturday movies. Slowly, we started laughing again. Not the forced kind you fake to hide pain, but real, goofy, messy laughter that fills a room and cracks open healing. One night, I was tucking him in, and he said, "Dad?" "Yeah." "Thanks for believing me." I froze. Then I sat on the edge of his bed and looked at him. "I'm sorry it took me so long." He smiled. "It's okay. You got there." That moment, worth every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, every ounce of pain. I began to reclaim parts of myself I had buried. I started running again, reading again. I reconnected with old friends, people I'd pushed away without even realizing it. At work I was sharper, more present. My team noticed. Promotions I never thought I'd care about suddenly landed on my desk. Not because I needed validation, but because I was finally me again. One evening, months later, I got a message. From her, a simple, "Can we talk? I made a mistake." I stared at the screen. My hands didn't even twitch to reply. Because I didn't need to. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. And mine led to peace. You see, the greatest revenge isn't rage. It isn't destruction. It's rebuilding, quietly, patiently, powerfully. It's looking at the person who broke you and realizing they don't have that power anymore. These days, my son and I talk about everything. No more secrets. We cook together. He's taller now, voice deeper, heart wide open. He told me once that watching me stand up for myself and for him made him feel safer than anything else ever had. That's when I knew this story wasn't about betrayal, it was about resilience, about family, about finding your way back after the storm. And as I watched him walk ahead of me into the future he deserves, I smiled because he taught me how to see, and I showed him how to fight back with strength, with clarity, with quiet power.